Hey, welcome anybody that's joining the channel right now. As you know, it's your boy C. I just wanted to touch on base with this whole Turo thing. I got a lot of friends that's always asking me, like, bro, how do you do Turo? Like, what is Turo? And like how they ask me a lot of questions about Turo and like how they can start and how they can join the platform and start making money like I make money through Turo. I haven't had too many trips. I've done Turo, you know, let's say maybe like 2 years in the past. Like I took a break from it honestly because I had a Dodge Challenger and I had a Dodge Charger. Scat both were scat packs. One was a wide body. I got that after the first one. So the first one ended up getting totaled, after like maybe 14, 15 trips. Sometimes people rented it for 2 weeks. Some people rented it for a week. You got customers that rented it just to test the vehicle out, which I had put a minimum to where you can only rent the car for like, you have to rent it for 2 days or more. You know what I mean? So the situation. I'm just gonna touch on a lot of bases on like, what you should know is like when you're first joining Turo and what you should do and how you should go about it. And I'm just giving you I'm just trying to inform you guys, the best I can. I'm not a professional and I'm definitely not a professional with all this content stuff and how people make these videos and stuff. So I'm gonna make this video the best that I can for you guys. Like I said, it's your boy C. This is the scheme. And the first questions we're gonna tackle on today. We're gonna talk about what is Turo. Okay. Turo is a platform where, you have, you know, cars that people personally own themselves. Like, so if you want to look at Turo in a certain way, you can look at Turo as Airbnb, but for cars. You're literally, when you go on Airbnb, you're renting houses that people own themselves, and you're staying in people's personal homes and stuff like that that they mortgaged, or they purchased themselves, or they bought outright, and then they listed on this app for you guys to rent it, and so they can make a profit. Passive income. That's what I consider that. That's passive income where, human being equals cash to me. And they come to my property, rent it. I don't have to be there. Money is just accumulating while I'm not doing anything. Um, what you call it. Another thing is Turo is basically, like I said, you take your car and you put your car on Turo for your friends, family members, or citizens, or anybody from out of the country where they come into the country, they can rent your vehicle. You know what I mean? So that's what Turo is basically. Just look at it as like an Airbnb for cars. If you know what Airbnb is, or some people use other apps where they can rent houses in different locations and stuff like that. Just look at it as one of those kind of apps. But instead of renting a house, you're renting a car. You get what I'm saying? From an actual person, not a company. So I would say like a lot of people like to abuse rental cars, and but like I feel like once you use Turo and you understand what Turo really is, you kind of like respect these people's cars a little more, because these are people just like you that are renting their cars out for people to enjoy their time wherever they are, wherever they're renting a vehicle from. How I say how to get started. Um, so I'm touching base on how to get started on Turo. I would say the first thing you should do is join Turo. See if you can get approved, because if you have a bad driving history or records and all that kind of stuff behind you, you're not going to get approved. I'm sorry to say it. Um, just make sure you get approved first. Go on the website, sign up, apply, to become a host, all that stuff, so you can, begin your journey through Turo. Um, Not a lot of people are going to get approved. A way that I could say to tackle this, like if say you're in a relationship or you have a wife or friend or girlfriend, whatever, grandma, mother, and you like, mom or babe or whatever, let's start a little investment. I got this investment plan. I learned about this Turo app, and ma, you got this car, or babe, you got this car that sits in the driveway all the time. It looked like it could get listed on Turo. Let's list it on Turo. Let's make some money. You know what I mean? You could go about it like that, where you can use your girlfriend, say her driving history, her records are clean, and she can get her, she's already approved. You could use her, you could list your car on her Turo to where you guys make the money. But you got to remember to always worry about them taxes, because any business you do, I'm gonna just put it out there. Any business you do, any LLC or any investments, taxes. I mean, if you're a smart person or anyone with a right mind when it comes to doing business, you would know that taxes are always involved in anything you do. I mean, you go buy a bag of chips, you got to pay taxes on that. You know what I mean? So if you're gonna list your car and you're gonna make $40,000, you better be ready to pay taxes on $40,000 for that car. You get what I'm saying? Deductibles do come into play, where you can add your deductibles. Okay, I got this maintenance, I pay for these brakes, I pay for all this stuff, and you can add that into your deductibles for the vehicle, for the money you've made, to where you probably don't owe them anything. Say you've only made money enough to pay your car note, or enough to pay, you know, whatever, like to fix the car if anything happens. Like, all that money you've made went into the car. So You could look at it like that to where you don't pay any taxes. It could be, you owe zero. But one thing I could say is like, just be prepared. You know what I mean? Just sign up, apply, get approved. And once you get past the approved process, then we can jump into the next steps and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So can anyone do Turo? I literally just pointed that out. Like, even if you have a friend, family member, anybody who's cool, you can get them to jump on board and y'all can do Turo together. Say you're the one with all the money, you got all the cash, you're getting all these bank, but your record, your driving history, all this stuff will not get you approved for Turo. You can literally go to someone and get approved that is approved and like come up with a plan with them. Y'all can go into a contract with each other, write up a contract where you guys agreed to do this LLC and this business together, where you figure, you guys are gonna list your cars on Turo and you're gonna make money together. You know what I mean? So that's another way it could go. So I say anyone can do Turo, but I don't know. You just gotta. There is an age limit. I feel like you got to be 21 or older to start your Turo journey and stuff. Like you just can't jump into this. You know what I mean? Um, Another thing is like, do you need money to start Turo? No, you do not need money to start Turo. To be honest with you, my point on tackling that situation is literally just go. Like if you don't have a vehicle, or say you got a vehicle, but you say like you don't want to put that vehicle on Turo, right? You can go to a dealership. Okay, you can go online and look for the MSRPs on vehicles where they fit your liking. So say the car is $20,000, you're like, okay, payments on that probably gonna be around like 400, maybe $300 to $400 a month for me. So you're like, okay, I can afford that. How I'd say go about it is make sure you can finance a car and not put any money down and literally go list that same exact car you just financed on. You could list it onto Turo the same day you financed it. Like same day you pull off the lot, you could go in the lot, take pictures, and list that car on Turo and start your journey immediately. And when you finance a car, they give you like 45 days, a month and a half to where you don't have to make your payments yet. That is your little cushion period to where, you could try to make some money before your even first payment even comes about. So it's like, you could tackle this in all kinds of ways. Um, I do say you don't need money to start Turo. You can like, if say you have like let's say like a 690 or, 650 credit score to like, let's say 7 and above, stuff like that. You can get approved for anything out here, honestly. Your interest rate's probably gonna be differ from your credit score. But like me personally, me and my wife, we have like 800 credit scores, and my girl, like we can finance anything we want, literally in the world. Like I could go buy a yacht or I could finance any house, any car. My credit score is excellent because I personally don't spend money I don't have. You know what I mean? So when it comes to like, so when I take a vacation, I'll use all that money for the vacation. I'll use credit cards to pay for everything. You know what I mean? And once we get home after the vacation, I'm paying everything off. That's how I go about things because I was planning to use the money anyway on my vacation. I'm not going to go spend $20,000 on vacation on credit cards and come home and not pay anything. No, it don't work like that. You're going to destroy your credit, and you're going to owe your credit company $20,000 for no apparent reason because you wanted to go have fun, which makes no sense. If you ain't got the money to go have fun, why are you having fun? If you ain't got money for liquor, why are you buying liquor? If you don't got money to club, why are you clubbing? I say that to everybody. Like it makes no. I watch people do this stuff all the time, and they ruin their lives, and then they look at everybody else for help, and it's kind of like, bro, you kind of caused your own downfall. You know what I mean? You can't put your negatives on anybody else because of what you've caused for yourself. That's how I kind of look at things. I don't drink. What I mean? I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm clean. I don't really like to party. I don't club unless it's like, to promote my music. I do music also. It's to promote my music, or, I used to be host shows. So it's like, I'm getting paid to be there. You guys are just there. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different story. You know what I mean? But no, I say you don't need money to start Turo. Like you can just go finance a car, put no money down, pull off the lot with one of their cheapest MSRP, and then you can list that car for like $100 to $200 a day. When you look at it, if it's $100 a day, that's almost $3,000 a month. Insurance actually, like the insurance, the coverage that you pick actually plays a role into that. We're gonna get to that part soon, but you know, just it's $3,000 a month. If you put it up for $100 a day, if you put it up for $200 a day, that's roughly like $6,000 a month. So you price your car where you feel a little comfortable, where you feel like, okay, that's a reasonable price for my car and stuff like that, and then you'll be making money. But you do not have to put money down on a car. You don't have to do anything, especially if it's an investment. If you're looking to list this car to get rented and for other people to drive it and do all this stuff, that's not a personal thing. You bought this car as like a business, and you want this car to make you money. So why would you put money down on it? You don't have to put money down on it. But if putting money down on it, gets it to a payment where you feel like, okay, those payments are something that if the car doesn't get rented, I can cover the payments myself. You know what I mean? That's one thing you could look at. Okay. Um, do you need money to start? No. I say no, you don't need money to start. How does insurance work with Turo? So I would say Turo has about like, I don't know, about 5 different insurance options. There's a 60%, there's a 75%, there's an 80%, there's an 85%, and there's a 90%. What that means is, okay, the 60%, say they rent the car for 1,000, you're getting paid $1,000 for these people renting your car. You get what I'm saying? So you pick the 60%. The 60% basically means that your car is fully covered. You don't have to pay a deductible. You take home 60% of the earnings, which would be, roughly around like $600. The Turo would get the $400. Um, Liability coverage, anything where, say your car isn't rented for a whole week, and you normally make around $1,000 to $4,000, $3,000, whatever you make in that week time period, Turo would reimburse you that money for, the time your car is being, in the shop, getting repaired, all that kind of stuff that someone else caused. You're still getting paid for your time. Your car's still making you money, even though it's in the shop getting repaired. You know what I mean? That's another thing that Turo touches base on, where they can help you. So it's never where you're not making any money and stuff like that. But that's a 60% coverage. Like, you pay $0 deductible. Here's an example of what it kind of looks like on my screen. You basically got the 60%, the 75. I don't even know if you can see it really good. I hate showing this. You pay $0 deductible. You know what I mean? It's options. Like, you go to the 75, you pay $250 deductible. Hard to show you guys. Camera's still freaking blurry. Yeah, but like, say you pick the 75% option, you got to pay $250 deductible. You get about 75% of the earnings. You know what I'm saying? You pick the 80%. You know what I mean? They host take 80%. You get 80%. Turo gets 20%. Your deductible goes up. It's $750 now. Say you pick the 85. Now your deductible is well over $1,500. You understand? Like, so 60% I would say is full coverage, and the less you go down, you're moving more towards liability. Obviously, you know what I mean. So honestly, my take on it, my experience through the whole process of using Turo and renting my cars through Turo, I've always picked the 60% because 60% covers wear and tear. Tires. If they mess up your tires, you come back and you read your tread, and you're like, whoa, my tread was not this low. Also, another thing is, make sure you buy a tread reader. So customers could be driving crazy amounts of miles or doing burnouts. Say you got a car that does burnouts and all that stuff. You want to be able to read the tread and take pictures of that before the trip. So whenever they go on their trip and they come back, if they bring that tread way below the point where you're like, hey, no way 200 miles did this. 200 miles took away this much tread on my tires? No way. And these tires are like 400 a piece. You know what I mean? You got Pirellis, you got what I mean. It depends, like, you know what I mean. But yeah, make sure you get tread readers. So whenever you take pictures of the tread, whenever the customer brings the car back, you can also, let them know, hey, this tread is like way lower than what it needs to be. So you can report that to Turo, where the customer, Turo will cover your tires, but also the customer gets charged for that. Turo will charge the customer for that process, but you don't have to worry about that. As the host, you're just getting your stuff repaired and fixed and all that stuff. You can report all damages to host. That's why I recommend you pick the 60%. But like I said, there's multiple options through Turo. Just literally go on Google and like type these things in if you want to know what the options are and how these and certain insurances cover certain things and what they do for you. I mean, 5 for host, 5 protection plans. Host can choose from the 60, 75, 80, 85, or 90 plans. That's what I literally just explained that to you. But it's like I said, I would always choose the 60 or the 75. It works more in your favor. Just be smart about this. Go, if you feel like it's a car that you're putting on there that you really don't care too much for damages and all that kind of stuff and wear and tear. I mean, go with the 80 or 85 or the 90 or whatever you feel like like I said, whatever you're comfortable with your vehicle being on Turo, with whatever insurance plan. The customer doesn't even have to put insurance on the car, but every time your car is booked, as long as you pick the insurance plan for your car to be covered, you as a host, you're covered. You don't have to worry about whatever the customer picks, because the customer can also add their own insurance onto the plan. So at the end of the day, something happens, their insurance is going to cover it. If you agree to, work with the customer, their insurance will cover it, but that customer is going to have to pay their deductible. Whatever their insurance has them do, they're still going to have to pay that money out of their own pocket. You get what I'm saying? It's like, but still, you're still covered. You know what I mean? And say you don't want to work with the customer, you don't have to work with the customer. Literally, you can just be like, okay, I don't want to talk to this motherfucker at all. He messed up my car. Da 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 da. I'm gonna take it to see what these damages cost. You can send a damage report to Turo. Turo will send a bill to the customer. Turo will reimburse you for all damage. They'll pay you straight up for all damages or anything that was caused to your vehicle, and your car's getting fixed. And you get paid for the time that your car is in the garage getting repaired if you pick the 60% insurance. Other insurance, they're not going to cover that. You Once you get into the app, like I said, once you get approved, you'll see these things. Turo actually shows you, and like if you look in the app, it'll tell you that this covers this, and if this happens, you won't be able to get this. And it'll explain to you. I'm just giving you guys pointers on certain things and how I've went about stuff. Like I said, they have 5 different plans that you can choose from. So it's the plan that best fits you guys. Whatever you're comfortable with your vehicle. It could be you're driving a supercar. You want to make sure you pick the 60%, or you're driving like a Honda Accord, a 2015 Honda, 2015 Honda Accord, and you're not really too worried about that crap. You're just like, oh, whatever. You know what I mean? If they damage it sometimes, I don't mind as long as they're willing to cover it. You don't care. You could pick the low insurances, and you can always choose to still go with the customer's insurance if they put their insurance on it. Okay. So that's one thing, like with the insurance, how does the insurance work? Another thing is like people always ask like, what year car would you post, or like, is there a limit and da 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 stuff like that. There is a limit to what car you can post. There's the age limit. So like Turo has an age limit for which your car can be on Turo. So your car must be 12 years or newer to be listed on Turo, with exceptions for specialty or classic. So, but they're basically saying is if your car is like a special car, like a classic, say it's like a 1960 something, some crazy shit, or it's like old school mobile, like something super old, but people want to rent it, you can still list that on Turo. You just have to clarify all that stuff. You know what I mean? They're going to ask you a little bit more questions to list your car, but you will be able to list a classic car on Turo. Like you can it's a Camaro, SS Camaro, old school 1964 or something. You know what I mean? Some crazy thing. You got some kind of crazy Dukes of Hazzard vehicle. You can list it on Turo. It's going to take a little bit more steps. You know what I mean? Like I said, your car can be 12 years old. So right now we're basically moving into 2026. So your car can be 2014, you know 2013 right now, but I would say 2014. And the car cannot have more than, I'm pretty sure, 130,000 miles. Oh yeah, it's right there. It basically says mileage fewer than 130,000 miles at the time of listing. So your car's got to be under 130,000 miles. You can't just be out here just listing like old cars that are super miles on them, piece of craps. All of a sudden your customer breaks down. Da, da, da. They don't want that. They don't want people. They don't want their customers to end up in these crazy situations. So keep that in mind. Your car can only be 12 years old. So you have to go out there and say you want to buy a car for 5,000, 6,000. You got to find a car that's like a 12-year-old car, maybe 10-year-old, with low miles, like maybe 100,000, maybe $110,000. Once you get the car listed, you should be fine though. They're not gonna unlist your car, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Um, but no, you can't post any year, any model. You know what I mean? Well, you just can't post any year of the vehicle. You have to make sure the car is at least 12 years older, or newer. You know what I mean? Or younger, basically, I would say. How does the pricing work on Turo? Like, whenever you list your car on Turo, you can compare other cars that are just like your car. So like I said, so if you look at this car right here, so it's a Honda CRV. They have a 2020 Honda CRV, right? I didn't actually want to click into it. I just wanted to zoom in a little more so you guys can see. So this person, so you got to actually look at the date. So this is from the 10th to the 13th. So we're saying that's about like a 2-day trip. So these people have this car listed for roughly around like maybe like, I don't know, $65 a day. Basically, you could compare your car to these cars. Like, say you got a Ford Taurus. See, this is 2013. This person is right on the mark of where their car can be listed. Car has been through 12 trips. Looks like he's charging at least like 90 something dollars a day. The first to the fourth, that's probably like a 3-day trip. So he's probably actually charging a little bit less. He's probably charging 62 at the same time. So he's probably charging like 65 or something a day for that car. Then you got to see his Kia Soul 2022. This person looked like they're charging this person look like they're charging like $30, $25 a day for their car. You can get cars really cheap on Turo. Jeep Grand Cherokee 2020. This person from the 17. So it's like a 2-3 day trip. You just compare cars and see how the pricing works for them, and see how your car matches theirs. And you can list your car around the same price, or you can list it for more. You don't have to list it for the same price that these people list their cars for. You can literally Shit, somebody got that same car listed for $100 a day. You can list yours for $200 a day. You don't whatever you want to list your car for. You don't have to get it overly rented. Say you're paying for your car and you love your car and you don't want these cheap bums or bastards driving your car around beating it up like it's nothing. You want to make sure you get at least somebody who has money and can afford your car and stuff like that. I've been through a lot of situations, you know what I mean? So you gotta be careful with your vehicle and list them for prices where it matters. You can even put an age limit to where it's only like anyone 25 or younger cannot rent your car and stuff like that. So you want experienced drivers. Um, yeah, like I said, when it comes to like how does pricing work and stuff like that, I would just compare your car to the other models that they have in your area. Because, like I said, if you go to Miami, you go to New York, you go to anywhere in the state, California, the pricing tends to change because you got to understand some places are flatland and some places are hills, mountains, so there's a lot more wear and tear on the vehicle. So people are going to charge you more for driving their cars through mountains and all that snow and all that kind of stuff. So, people, a car require more maintenance in these areas, you know what I mean? But if you're in flatland where there's no snow, like a Florida area, don't have to worry about those kind of things. What I mean, it's gonna determine the price of your car where you don't have to worry about too much maintenance, where you can make a decent, $2,000 a month for your car and stuff like that, where you feel comfortable. So pricing, I would say compare to other cars with your same model, your same vehicle. Go on the app and check in your area. Make sure the pricings are, accurate. If you want to get your car rented a lot, you want to definitely keep it on. Turo will also give you like a price for your car that they've already seen. They've already went through the app and they've already seen what the cars similar to yours are listed for. So they'll compare your car to theirs and they'll give you a price where it's like, okay, this price will work ideal for your car only. You know what I mean? So if you want to make money and you want to consistently have your car rented, Turo will suggest a price that will consistently have your car rented. You know what I mean? So you'll never have to worry about payments. I promise you that. But if you got money and you ain't really worried about your car being rented that much, like personally, me, I got money, so I don't really be worrying about my car rented too much. So, but I want people who have money to rent my car. There's always a market for everyone. I mean, somebody might not pay $5,000 for that chair, but then you got somebody that will pay $5,000 for that chair. You know what I mean? It's things you got to look at like that. Um, Another thing is like, how do you choose the right car for Turo? Like I said, it also comes down to like your credit score and what you do for a living. They're gonna go off like pay stubs and all that stuff. If you go get a car, if you already have a car, you can list your car on Turo. Like we said, if you go through all these points that I listed and I talked about, these topics where I said, how old your car can be, how much mileage your car can have to be listed and stuff like that. You got to look at those things. You know what I mean? Those things come into factor. You know what I mean? That determines the kind of car that you choose. I recommend that you not start off with a supercar, anything super expensive, anything crazy. If you're just kind of trying to test the waters with the app and see how, money is made through here, I would start like, go to Nissan, get their cheapest MSRP, somewhere around like 19 to $20,000. Get a Sentra, list the Sentra on there for like $100 a day, stuff like that, and see how it works for you. You know what I mean? It'll be a car that you can still afford if anything happens. You know what I mean? But you will always still be able to make these payments. I promise you that. For some reason, I trust Turo so much. I've been working with the app. They've never done me wrong. They've always handled everything the way they're supposed to. I've always talked to like support, and support has always helped me whenever I needed help and stuff like that. Like I said, to pick the right car, you just got to go in and just be like, determine how much money you really got to be doing stuff like this, and what's your wallet looking like, and what's your credit looking like, and you know what I mean. That a lot of things come into determination of what kind of car you can get to list on Turo. Um, you want to get the car you've always wanted, you can do that. You can go get me personally, I want a C8. I'm going to get a C8 eventually after this Cadillac. The Cadillac costed the same price as a C8. I could have got a Cadillac right now. I could have got a C8 right now, but I chose to go get this car. It's more luxury, more suited for like economy type people where they want to drive and feel comfortable. It's got massage chairs, stuff like that, where I don't got to worry about customers doing burnouts or speeding or going crazy, like trying to crash my car and total it. I don't have to worry about those situations because regardless of Turo covering you through these situations, there's still headaches. You know what I mean? So you still got to get stuff done. You still got to turn keys in. You still got to call your, bank and let them know what happened and stuff like that, so they can, you know, transfer all the information over to Turo to pay off and all that. It's a job, so you don't really want to end up in those situations a lot. You want to make sure you're doing this right and going about it the right way. You don't want to be in it where you're like, dang, what the hell happened? What did I do wrong? You know what I mean? So just take your time, think about things before you do it. Before you buy a car that you can't afford, stuff like that. You don't want to do that. Just make sure you're smarter. You making enough money to cover the car before you buy it and stuff like that. But like I said, Turo will suggest prices to where you will never really have to pay for these cars, you know. But I recommend starting off with a cheap vehicle to where if you're just starting on Turo, just get something that you can afford. If you know, say Turo's paying half the payments, you know what I mean? Just make sure you can afford the car still. You don't want to jump into anything crazy. But if you own the car already, say you have a car that's like a 2018, 17, stuff like that, and you own it, the car's only got like 80,000 miles on it, you can list that car on Turo to where you don't have any car payments and you can just make profit, you know? And then you could go finance the car that you really want. And that car that you put on Turo can also pay for the car that you just financed too. So it's like, you know, my car that I've had for like 6, 7 years now is now paying for the new car that I have now that's mine's, you know what I mean? And now I don't have to make a payment. This car is paying for this car. You know, so you could go about things like that. I just wanted to touch base on certain little things with Turo to let people know little things. So if anybody else wants to join Turo, you can go right ahead. You know, I just wanted to touch bases with these topics, these questions and stuff that I have on my phone that I wanted to ask you. Like people have asked me, you know, through my process of having Turo and doing Turo myself. So I literally just woke up, so I probably look crazy on here. Any other questions, please leave them in the comments. You know, I'll make another video addressing those questions and I'll answer them the best that I can. Like I said, just leave them in the comments and I'll make another video. Just make sure you guys tune in. If you want to know anything else from me about Turo and how this stuff works and how to go about it, I'm here. I'm here for you guys. You know, we're all in this journey together. We're all trying to figure out how to make money and, you know, get passive income to where we can live more of a free life to where, you know, you could be with your kids, family, friends, whatever. You want to go party more, have fun. You want to buy a penthouse, you know, who knows? You might, from listening, watching my videos, you might go start your own journey with Turo. And then, you know, 2 years down the line, you own 6, 7 cars. You know, like you can go finance that car and that one car could pay for itself in 1 year. If you choose to have all the money that Turo makes go right back into that car. Say that car is making you 3,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? You do the math for 12 months. 3,000 times 12. That car is not your job. You're still working, you're still making money to pay your bills, but that car is making its own money to pay itself. If you take all that money that you make and put it right back into the car, that car will pay itself off in a year. You know, the car could pay off a year, 2 years, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So I recommend anyone doing Turo. I've always told my friends, like I've always recommended my friends to join, and you know they just always been scared or they just don't want to do it. You know, I don't hold them against it, but I've always told them don't really keep asking me questions and all this stuff. That's why I chose to make this video to let anyone who wants to know. Because I'm tired of talking to people who are just taking my info and I'm spilling the bean. I'm giving them game the whole time and just feel like they're not really listening. They don't care. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna waste my time with that. I'm gonna start making videos on how to do this stuff. So you guys just watch me and I could gain from it. You know, I could gain subscribers, views, stuff like that. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. So it's your boy C, it's the scheme, and this was a video about Turo. Use this the best as you can, as much as I could inform you guys on these topics. Like I said, leave some questions in the comments and I'll answer them. I'll make another video where I answer those exact questions. I'll even post your question on the video and stuff like that. So anything you guys want to know, just leave them in the comments. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Like I said, it's your boy C, it's the scheme. We out of here, man.